And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to talk about all kinds of awesome releases for tabletop games from your favorite store ever in the world, because it's the best store ever in the world, Gigabytes Cafe. John, how you doing today?
Doing great. Thank you for that wonderful introduction.
You know, I'm all full of the hype, especially with stuff like this thing right here. So I'm showing that off. It's the Battle Systems Galactic Core Set. This thing is absolutely amazing. I'm going to show that off a little bit.
Yeah.
So we have our terrain sale on MDF, but I also have to point out this stuff, which a lot of people have questions about, and I saw some folks asking about what it's like. Effectively, it is that light cardboard material, and then you can actually put it together modularly. So there's over 300 pieces in here, and you can fill out easily a 3x3 board. It comes with a 2x2 neoprene mat, which
Right.
is amazing. Good, nice, high quality. And then you can literally have all of this scatter like cargo containers and air vents and command desks and all that. So whether you're playing Infinity or you're playing any number of games, like for instance Fallout, even with some Warfare, you could play that with this. Absolutely amazing. And then our MDF terrain sale, which we still have going on. That is the wood that has been laser cut and etched, and it comes in little flat panels. And I, for instance, grabbed one of the orc strongholds, and it's huge. Like the amount of space that this stuff can take up is absolutely amazing. So make sure you come by the store and get your MDF terrain on sale, and then you can also pick up any number of other terrain features that we have in the store. Super awesome to make sure to fill out your gaming table. It's a great time.
Yeah. And we have a lot of regulars that basically have been creating these wonderful boards from the MDF terrain.
Mm-hmm.
Really great to see. If you've follow Michael Hauser on Instagram, he's been building this like super gorgeous orc board with all the like the MDF orc stuff that he's painted over. And you were giving some good advice about getting them ready to paint.
Yes. So, people have talked before, and priming models can be difficult with white primer. And so, what people have, said, and like GW folks have said, they talk about the titanium dioxide, which is the pigment that makes it pure white, and how that is a larger pigment than other types of paint. So you can get a very fine coat with like gray sear, for instance, because it's a different pigment, right? So because MDF is porous, it's wood, you have to have a thicker pigment in order to not bleed through, is what it's, I guess is what it's called. So then if you're using something like I tried yesterday with gray sear, I had an experiment and I said, let's try gray sear and see what happens. It literally soaks into the wood. Whereas I use white primer and then it covers it. Now you still have to use a little bit more than you would on a plastic model because plastic is non-porous, right?
Yep.
So then wood is porous, but because of that larger pigment, you're able to cover it. So when you get MDF terrain and you want to prime it, and if you don't have an airbrush, use white or other colors. But I would suggest priming white and then priming another color on top of that.
Yeah. Oh, and even priming white gives you like I have a tendency to notice that terrain becomes very dark as
Yes.
people paint it. So like starting off with a white base lets you kind of have it or have the end product hopefully be a little bit brighter, a little bit more
Hmm.
eye catching. But yeah,
Right, because then sometimes the mat that you're playing on will be
yeah,
a little darker, and that's great. But then having the terrain features pop, like you're saying, is just awesome.
yeah. It just makes for a more cinematic feel.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's so cool.
Yeah.
So then we're talking about all kinds of new releases that we have. Let's start off with some of the board games that we
Yeah.
have.
So the big ones that dropped this week will be Brass. So
Mm.
I was just talking to John about this right before the stream started. Brass is not necessarily a new board game, but one that has just become widely available, really for us for the first time this week. In basically what you guys are doing, you're playing entrepreneurs during the Industrial Revolution, so like the late 1700s, early 1800s, and you're basically trying to develop more or less your empire, right? There's two different versions of the game. There's Brass Lancashire and then Brass Birmingham. Lancashire was the first one released. It's done by Martin Wallace. Absolutely fantastic game. And then Brass Birmingham is the sequel, and that one is done by three developers working on it as well. So, in addition to Martin Wallace, there's Matt Tolman and Gavin Brown. So, these games have been super popular the moment we got them in. And a lot of people are talking about how well designed it is and how much fun it is, and they really like the setting and the feel of the game itself. So, really fun board game, and I'm looking forward to seeing people play it here on our board game nights.
So good, so good.
Yeah,
And if you don't know, we have our board game talk where Joseph and I on Wednesdays talk about new board games as well. So hopefully we'll go over that one in more detail. So if you are interested in that, there's just so many cool board games that come out all the time. It's hard to keep track
yep,
sometimes, you know.
absolutely.
But hopefully we will be your guides
Oh,
to
1 second, John.
keeping things.
If you
Yep.
could, start with Games Workshop.
Yep. So we have Beastgrave coming out for Games Workshop, and so this is the third installment of the Warhammer Underworlds line. And so what they're doing is they're changing up a couple of things. They're making the first set of universal cards. I'm not sure if it's all of them or if it's some of them. They basically are not legal for tournament play. Now, people, you can still play whatever you want if it's casual, but what they're saying is if you're going to be in the tournaments for the universal cards, you keep up with the latest season because it adds different things. Like if you went from Shadespire into Night Vault, then you start adding the magic element. And so now with this new Beastgrave stuff, you have new elements involved, and it might make some of the first season universal cards maybe a little redundant or, you know, not as competitive necessarily. And just once you have hundreds and hundreds of cards, kind of sometimes becomes mismatches, right? So then they're saying if you have the original, you know, Shadespire universal stuff, don't use that. And they say going forward, you'll just use the current season and the previous season. So right now, it's Beastgrave and Night Vault. And then going forward, whatever the next season is for next year's is going to be that one and Beastgrave. So then keep your universal cards. You know, you can always use your faction cards. So if you want to still use Steelheart's Three Dudes, the Steelheart one, or any of the other first ones from Shadespire, you're more than welcome to use that. You just have to use the universals from the latest sets, which is totally fine. Now, some of these things look really cool. Some of these warbands look really cool. I'm not necessarily a fantasy guy myself all the time, but these ones look pretty cool. They have the little riders for the goblins, the wolf riders, and anytime you have any sort of mounted stuff in a skirmish setting, it's always a little bit like, why do you have horses? But they're goblins, so it's totally okay. So if y'all are looking forward to playing any sort of Underworld stuff, y'all just post here in the comments. And also we have our Underworlds group. And I think you could probably just post into our Gigabytes board gaming group, which we have linked in the description here of the video. If you're watching this, if you're not watching it live, you can click. The Karate Elves, yes. So they're including new models and new sub factions going forward each time. But of course, they have to space it out because if you do it all at once, then you have nothing new to bring in, right? So I'm sure we'll make our way to High Elves, maybe, hopefully Dark Elves. That'd be wonderful to see that kind of thing, like the Elven realms. Because right now it's in Gur, right, which is the Beast realm. So that's a pretty cool thing, pretty cool mechanics. We actually had a gameplay video that Corey and JT did, showing off some of the new gameplay from it. So please do go back into our archives, either YouTube channel, Gigabytes TV, all one word, or here on the Facebook page, you can find our videos tab and then search for that one and watch it. So it's quite entertaining. It gives you an example of some of the new mechanics that are involved.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to Beastgrave in general. Simply moving the narrative out of the realm of death, and then also basically all the war bands that have already been kind of hinted at that are coming out. Uh, Seems like a lot of fun and really cool models to add to the game, and some factions that haven't necessarily received new models in a while will be getting new ones. So from the card art, it looks like we're getting more Glotkin, we're getting more Flesh Eater Courts, we're getting what was the other one? Possibly Ogres in there as well in Beastgrave.
Yeah.
So that's all
And
exciting.
I love ogres.
Yeah, and it looks like the UPS guy has finally found our back door, so I'll be right back again.
Okay, sounds good. So then also in terms of GW, you know, we have those recent releases of the Space Marine Codex and stuff. So I'd like to hear y'all's opinions on which one of these Codex supplements is the strongest to y'all. So I cannot recall if it's tomorrow or if it's the next week that has new supplements or if they're already out. My brain's getting a little fuzzy with my current schedule, like it is. But I know the Ultramarines. One people were saying, "Oh yeah, Ultramarines are powerful," and I've looked through that Codex supplement. And it's got some pretty good stuff. And the Raven Guard they were saying was a little weaker, but again, I don't know. Like on the numbers is a different thing from how it plays. So I'm curious anyone who's played the Raven Guard, what you think. Now, of course, there was the whole thing with Shrike. I was gonna make a whole separate video before I even got my haircut, and I was able to actually recreate Shrike's haircut. It was absolutely hilarious. I don't know if GW is doing this on purpose nowadays. Y'all let me know if you think so, but I feels like GW knows that their material is like super meme worthy now, and they're making it and pushing it toward that because there's no way that you look at Shrike's like Fallout Boy haircut and you go, oh yeah, no one's gonna make a meme about that one. I feel like everyone is gonna make a meme about that one. And a lot of the stuff. What's the new guy for the Imperial Fists? Is it Core? I can't remember his name. And then he's got like the chin and everything. But then who on earth made the box art for that or the artwork where he's missing his teeth? Like, hey guys, I heard you had a battle. Hilarious. I don't know. I feel like whoever's doing it knows that it's gonna be memeing a lot because that one is absolutely priceless. Absolutely priceless. All right, let's read some comments. They came out last week. Oh my gosh! See, it's crazy. Everything happens so fast. So what, Kai? Why do you think Iron Hands is the top one? Why do you think that's the number one? Because I haven't actually looked through that one yet. These last two ones, the Imperial Fist and the Iron Hands. I've looked through the Raven Guard and the Ultramarines one. So Jeremy says Raven Guard is strong, but very difficult to make work compared to the sledgehammer that is Iron Hands. Kai, you say I think it's less they know it's meme worthy and more that they take themselves less seriously. Well, that's the funny thing. It's supposed to be grimdark, right? And if it's supposed to be grimdark, and then it has this whole like second meta layer to it, where everyone doesn't take it seriously. I guess now they say yes, technically it's grimdark, but then if our artwork shows the dude without his dentures, then it's fine. Because like I feel like everyone who sees that is gonna think, Grandpa is in the battlefield searching for his dentures. It's hilarious. So then, why is Iron Hands the strongest one then? Right. So then, this is a thing for anyone who is a general player. Like you just like, hey, I want to play the one that I'm the best themed for, and then we have other players who are gonna go towards the very strongest thing. So then, Iron Hands has strong vehicles. For instance, they get wounds back. I think it's with that one character, you get like 6 wounds back in a round, something like that. And then you always take your vehicle's highest stat line. Like you double the number of wounds for its stat line that it uses in terms of its movement and all that stuff. So yeah, so John, I was just talking to them about which is the strongest supplements for the Space Marines. Which one do you think is the strongest one so far?
The yet to be released salamanders.
Yeah, okay. Why is that?
Because they're cool. No.
Correct answer.
I mean, that's really all that I care about. But no, I mean, I think you guys are already talking about the Iron Hands, and general consensus is that they make the best use of the currently released Space Marine models out there.
Gotcha.
So, but once again, that's a time. It's a time frame thing, right? So, like Iron Hands are really strong right now because what we have out, they use a lot of the Iron Hand rules for, where we might see some new units or other things that pop out later that maybe will take care or take use of the Ultramarines or Imperial Fist or White Scars. Like, whenever we get Primary Spikes, who knows? White Scars might be back on top. So it's one of those things where it's important to understand that this game's like constantly evolving. And that's the reason why I say Salamanders are number one, because they're cool. Because who knows when they're going to be on top or what the next like top tier army is. So
Right. Well, and sometimes they release a new model and it can completely change things just because they release that, and they're getting better about making sure that rules come out with it with the new model. Yeah. So then, what do you think about the new sister stuff? And it's fast approaching with the sisters of battle.
So I was actually just doing some research on that yesterday, trying to figure out what's going to be in that box set and like the rough price of it. I don't know anything more than anyone else is basically what
Hmm.
it boils down to. Uh, but it's really exciting because when I got into Games Workshop, they weren't really releasing new armies, right? Like,
Right.
uh, and the armies they eventually started, but like even then, like if you look at Gene Stealer Cult or Adeptus Mechanicus, when they came out, like the line of those models was relatively small. But it seems like Sisters they are dropping basically an entire faction at once, and I've never really seen them do that
Hmm.
with a particular faction. So it's really exciting, and I'm really really looking forward to seeing basically all the sculpts and what's going to be in that box set. And I think we already have a bunch of pre-orders for that box set. So
Oh yeah, I think that's the one that's going to be as much as they think they need to make. I think there's probably not enough.
yeah,
Just the pure amount of people. There's the Rapintia squads, the flyers, right? No, that's the
yeah,
Seraphim.
it's a
Sorry, the
Seraphim.
Seraphim squads with the
Yeah,
flyers. The Rapintia's the I know from the video game. I used to play the sisters in the video game all the time, so I'm not sure what they're switching up for the new stuff.
yeah,
But overall, the sculpts are incredible.
yeah. They're really taking advantage of basically 3D modeling and design. Like uh, being able to use a computer lets you figure out a lot of problems that traditional sculpting runs into, and a lot of that's like weight balance. Um, Games Workshop, now that they started doing 3D modeling, loves to have these like really detailed models and dynamic poses bouncing on basically the smallest piece of plastic they possibly can to make it look cool. If you've noticed, Jane Czar is balancing on her ponytail in the new figure,
So
and
cool.
yeah, and like same with Celestine, like she's held up by a couple of like pieces of parchment, uh, and like all of these like 3D printed models allows them to just be really gorgeous and dynamic. And I'm expecting to see a lot of our veteran painters take high advantage of how nice those models are. I know Matt Blaisdell, who is probably one of our fastest painters that we have, is interested in Sisters. Like he has a Sisters force already, so I'm kind of excited to see how quickly he can turn out a box set. Once it's released.
It's gonna be great. We have Colin asking about do you think it's Battle Force size box for the sisters?
So I'm almost positive that it's going to be like the box set's probably going to be between that like 150 and $200 mark. So yeah, it's going to be probably Battle Force size. So I would expect anywhere between like 750 to 1250 points in it.
Hmm.
It would be nice if it was just like a solid 1,000 points in a box, and then you can just pick up two and have like a fully
Yeah.
ready army ready to go. Um,
Well, I know for some of the Apocalypse boxes, they're around 600 to 700 points.
right. Uh,
So you typically have to get at least two of those, and you fill out the rest how you want. You know.
right. And I expect to see the Sisters one being so it might be a little bit more expensive than the 150 mark because the box itself, like what they've previewed so far, does look much larger than the Battle Force boxes that they released for Apocalypse.
Right.
And so that's either because the sprues are gigantic, which is possible, or there's a lot in it.
And the way they're packing these sprues nowadays for GW in particular is great. They're just tight. You know.
Yeah.
Like I've actually had difficulties getting in there with the the cutter.
Correct. Yeah. Don't worry, Games Workshop will probably come out with a new sprue cutter specifically designed for Games Workshop sprues.
I'd almost be okay with that.
Yeah.
All these other ones are pretty thick. You know.
Yeah. But for the Sisters of Battle Box, like it's probably going to be like a jam packed, like filled with content. Um, I expect it'll be interesting to see if the box set, like if they include like rules or material in it outside of just the models, because of people that play the older sisters, like the Metal Sisters, probably want to buy their codex separately. But it'd be kind of cool if the codex was in the box, um, and then like probably some like fluff or like a campaign or something like that.
Mm. Oh, that'd be cool. Well, part of Psychic Awakening, I guess. When
Yeah.
does do you know when Psychic Awakening officially starts?
No. So if we want, we can talk about October because that's probably when it's going to start.
Okay.
So in October, we're going to have the release of the Ossiarch Bone Reapers, which is an Age of Sigmar army. And much like the Sisters of Battle, this army seems much more fleshed out than a lot of the other like armies Age of Sigmar has released in the last year or so. Um, just because like armies like Gloomspite Gits and things like that already had several units on the table, like so it didn't call for a massive like overhaul. This is a whole new thing ready to go. But that's supposed to be in October. It could be at the start of October. It could be at the end. Same with Psychic Awakening. We don't know exactly when that's landing. Uh, and then also we are getting the Iron Hands and Salamander supplements. Not Iron Hands, Imperial Fists and Salamander supplements. So both of
Mm.
those are, or all three of those are huge releases, and they're all supposed to start in the October timeframe. Now, Psychic Awakening is just going to be the first box set, which will be that Eldar versus Drukari or Craft Worlds versus Drukari, thrown in with a little bit of Yunari. Um, so it'll be interesting to see that release in itself, but I'm assuming it'll just be like a box that comes out and potentially a book that goes along with it. And then similar to the Salamanders and Imperial Fists, it'll be, their supplements, the character models, and upgrade sprues, potentially dice as well. Since we kind of had a leaked Salamanders dice spoiled.
Yeah.
But who knows? That might have just been a typo. Like they could theoretically not have dice, and some guy was just looking at the Salamanders as he was typing out the name, and no one caught it. And then finally, the Bone Reapers, we know that they have infantry, cavalry, a catapult. Um, it looks like 5 or 6 characters with heavy infantry and potentially new terrain as well releasing with it. So
So cool.
yeah, no, it's really gorgeous, and the army looks great. But it's one of those things where if they release at the beginning of the month, I feel like their releases are going to take up a majority of the month itself. So
Hmm.
uh, it's probably going to be pushed towards the end with Psychic Awakening coming sooner than we necessarily think. Uh,
So we estimated Sisters would be like November ish.
uh,
That's the
yeah,
rumors
no,
anyway.
no. So Sisters are November. We know that for a fact. Games Workshop said November. They didn't say when in November.
Oh, they did.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
good, good, good.
Yeah, so I'm expecting it's going to be like they usually have a Thanksgiving box set. So I
Hmm.
expect it to be Sisters and then plus something else like either Adeptus Titanicus or Aeronautica, Blood Bowl, or Necromunda having like a small release with there, like potentially like a new box set of one of those games.
Or one of the two Warcry bands.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah, or yeah, exactly, like a Warcry thing.
I want the ones the Flame guys.
Oh
The
yeah,
I
yeah,
what is it?
yeah. Yeah, there's Scions of the Flame and Spire.
That's the one.
Yeah, they're both really cool. And Jeremy asked when the Cities of Sigmar book drops, and it goes up for pre-order this weekend. So that means we'll get it next Saturday.
Hmm.
And for those people wondering, that does mean it will be legal for the upcoming 2,000 point tournament in October, and then also for the grand tournament in November, the Age of Sigmar GigaCon. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, October's gonna be packed, man.
Oh,
It's great.
absolutely.
We already have all our events packed up, but
Yeah, and people keep asking me to try to squeeze in one more. It's like, oh,
if we can, we'll try. We want
yeah,
everyone to play if they can.
yeah, absolutely. But
At some point, there's only so many spots, right?
yeah, it's playing Tetris with a schedule, so it's a
Right.
new challenge, and we actually had to hire on a new event coordinator to simply share the load that Rob has to deal with on a daily basis. Uh,
It's crazy.
no, it is. But yeah, so that's like Games Workshop in October is going to be a huge month for them, and like I said, it'll probably be Psychic Awakening starting off pretty soon in October, and then having the Bone Reapers finish off the month, and having the Bone Reaper releases lead into the Sisters of Battle release.
Mm.
And then from there, we'll probably see the normal Games Workshop holiday box sets that they normally come out with.
Hmm.
Who knows what they'll be, but they're always a good deal. So definitely think.
I keep on saying someone has to make the sleigh bells pun.
Sleigh, oh, sleigh bells.
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
Right, right, right.
I got
If someone will do it, it'll be great.
it. But yeah, the Cities of Sigmar book that's just got previewed is really exciting, especially for older fantasy players, because it takes all those models that were kind of nebulous that didn't necessarily fit into an army. Uh, it gives them an army to play in. And not only does it let you play with all of the older fantasy models, it lets you kind of pick and choose some of the factions that came out with Age of Sigmar that fit the aesthetics or theme of the old army in itself. So if you're an old dwarf player, you can take one of the cities where the dwarves of, like your Durden, your dispossessed, the guys who lost their mountain homes and moved into a city, fight alongside the Caradron overlords, and those are the heavy technical sky pirate dwarves, which is a really awesome army. Uh,
They're so cool.
and then also the Wanderers, who and the story for them is kind of sad. But basically, when chaos came to take over, the mortal realms, uh, the wood elves living in the realms fled, and so Alariel, the goddess of life, said, "Okay, cool. Well, yeah, you fled, and now that chaos has been pushed back, and we can now establish cities again. You don't get to come join the party." Um, in recent times, after the Necroquake, Alariel's like, "Okay, guys, like your timeout's over, come back to the city." So you can then play wood elves alongside of Sylvaneth, and same with
Nice.
the cities of Sigmar, or the free peoples, the humans who still live in the world. Get to fight alongside the Stormcast themselves, or you can mix and match any one of those, which is really awesome. And it's probably one of the most flexible battle tomes out there, which is really important for a lot of people because it lets you take any collection that you have, especially from Warhammer Fantasy Battles. If you were a Empire player, a Dark Elf player, a High Elf player, a Dwarf player, and you get to mix and match the units that you have, and you basically get to tailor your list to the models that you own. So if you're an Empire player who loves steam tanks, you can run an all steam tank list in Age of Sigmar now. Or if you're a beast heavy dark elf player, you're now your Corsairs can take only Hydras and Charybdises.
Nice.
Yeah, and same with the high elves. The high elves, like the Phoenix Guard. If you want to just run a bunch of great swords and things like that, it's absolutely a okay. So
So cool.
yeah, the book itself is really really flexible, and we'll talk about it a little bit more next week. Um,
Hmm.
and we'll try to get Mark on stream on that Saturday because he will talk your ear off on it,
It's gonna be great.
which is really exciting. And then Ross asks when chapter approved is coming out. So November. They always do chapter
Yeah.
approved in November. So I'd expect it to release to coincide with the Sisters
Hmm.
drop. So that could be something that comes out like the week of Thanksgiving. So Sisters of Battle plus, chapter approved.
And then the big FAQs, they changed that to once a year, or is it still twice a year?
Still twice a year.
Okay, so then was it March and is it September?
It might be scheduled for September, but they might have pushed it back to October,
Okay.
depending on releases, especially with like Space Marines and the Age of Sigmar stuff and all that. So we'll see. We'll see on the. I need to check their schedule on that, but yeah, there should be a big FAQ and then also a chapter approved coming in November.
I feel like it's tough because you have all these new supplements for like the Codex Space Marine stuff, right?
Yeah,
And so people are now that they're out, they're starting to see like if there's any balance issues. So they can't. How do they FAQ based off of that feedback? Because now that there's
yeah.
tens and upon tens of thousands of people playing it
Well,
versus their own test groups before, you know?
yeah, and that's where they like to give it a month of anything that they've released. So everything will basically get an FAQ or errata a month after it's released, and that's usually most of the time just explaining the wording of it or adjusting minor errors. Like a lot of times there'll be a misprint or oh hey this rule interacts in a way we didn't think about, so let's clarify the wording on it. And that so those should all come out a month after the release. So we should be getting one for the actual Space Marine book relatively soon, and then the supplements should follow one by one, uh,
Gotcha.
which is exciting. So it gives them some wiggle room. So like if they do drop the big FAQ, let's say today, then it doesn't necessarily matter as much for the Space Marines because they'll still get their smaller one by themselves. This one will just cover everything else up to this point.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So then let's talk and do a segue over into our RPG our RPG stuff that's happening. So we have our one shots now with Jim, and then also Phil.
Yep.
Jim's are every week, and then Phil's are every other week. And I've just finished up their videos as well as the RPG page, which I can link here that you
Yeah.
can go to, and it's live right now.
So what we did, and I know a lot of people were aware or following it, but about 2 months ago, we put up a help wanted ad for experienced DMs, uh, and we were able to hire a couple in order to run events for our customers. Now, these events, the purpose is to get y'all exposed to either a new way of playing an RPG that you already have, or a whole new RPG, something that you haven't experienced before, because at the end of the day, we all love D&D. It is the bread and butter of the role playing universe. But there's a lot of great stuff out there that maybe can give you a different opportunity to play through a different story, or just have a new experience with you and your friends. And that's what Jim and Phil are here to do. They're here to be your guides, your Sherpas into new role playing games. And they have both been doing fantastic jobs. And it was a little bit slow at start, but the momentum has now started to build. And we are now getting consistently full signups, and people are loving it. We're getting great reviews about our DMs, who really put a lot of love into every session that they run. They want to make sure that you enjoy your experience, and they want to make sure that the game that you're playing looks attractive and shows off the best attributes of it. So,
It's so great. So, I mean, they're so good, Like, I got to interview Jim and Phil both for video, And basically, they talk about, like, Jim has done it since he was in the Army years ago.
yep.
And he said one of the I won't ruin it from the video. I can't. I'll skip that. Go watch the video on the RPG page. So it's got the video of him and then the other video of Phil as well. But see the story about his D20 special D20
Yeah.
he had to create from the military. It's such a cool story. And that kind of stuff is very interesting to me because we talk a lot about diversity in gaming and where people come from. And it's so cool to see people like in the military where they don't have all of the models necessarily when they're deployed. They have to make do with scraps sometimes and whatever they can make. But the love of the game is what keeps it going. And that's, I think, a really important thing for people to think about whenever you're playing is like enjoying the heck out of it as you're doing it. Because it's all about having fun to me, It's an
Yeah.
escape from all the other things that are happening in life.
And I mean, at the end of the day, all these games came from. Oh, hey, by the way, the September 2019 update just went live.
The big FAQ?
Uh, yes.
No way.
Yeah. Cool.
What?
Yeah. So John's a witch. Uh, we'll be distributing pitchforks and torches. We'll make them a nice march up to Ohio. And we'll get them.
Oh my goodness. What are the odds?
Uh, yeah,
I'm going to go bring this up. It's on the community page.
yeah. It absolutely is.
All right.
Um, so, but getting back to
There it is, September update.
getting back to the RPGs and all that, it is so great to have these guys. And one of the big things about gaming in general is just going to be finding a way to play. Like, we use games as an escape, and it is incredibly important to be able to do that. It is a way that we can de-stress, relax, interact with other people, like socialize in a structured environment that you don't necessarily have to worry about as much. So I don't know. I like it.
It's so great. It's so great. So we want to bring up this. I'll bring this over onto your window here. All right. So let's talk through this real quick.
Oh, October's almost here. Important rules
We
update.
have major online updates: the Forge World range of Imperial Knights and Chaos Knights, and the Custodes models. Data sheets rebalanced and changed according to the feedback and comments you've sent us. I'm not sure if that's from the previous one where they changed like strength to 7 for the Caladius.
Yeah.
Because that it didn't wreck it, but it made it much more in line with other vehicles, I think. So it's updating all existing FAQ and errata documents. So then look through your specific ones. I'll go through this one later and see if there's anything that strikes out in particular.
Yep.
But for now, that's fine. They say they're not releasing any new beta match play rules as part of this update. Right here. So no new match play rules. The one exception, some errata relating to certain Space Marine stratagems have been removed. Gotcha. The new codex and supplements replace the rules. All right. And we're not introducing any balance changes at this time.
Yeah.
It's going to be incorporated into chapter approved. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So basically, now it's actually a proper, true FAQ. They're not even calling it the big FAQ. It's just September update.
Yeah. And I think that's nice. It's a way to make sure that it's not overwhelming for players, not a huge shakeup, and it all leads into um, the chapter approved that's coming out later. But they did finalize the bolter discipline rule, so that's really
Mm-hmm.
exciting. Um, and then also tactical reserves, and then adding the stratagem. So things that they were testing before, absolutely great, and are now finalized. So I like it.
Yep, they finalized tactical. Yep, tactical restraint, prepared positions. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's good. I mean, those things have been solid, so I like it.
all in all, a nice, uh, all in all, a nice update and a minor one. So it's not going to blow anyone's head or blow anyone's mind. So yeah, good job, Warhammer community. Uh,
Yeah. So then, anyone who watching, take a peek through those FAQs. Let us know and post in the Gigabytes groups and the organized play 40K groups about what changes you see from the FAQ. If there's anything substantial, there might not be, but still, it's always good to clarify certain rules. Certain ways things interact, which is always good. All right. So, final things is let's talk about some of our smaller games. So, away from the beautiful behemoth that is GW, Games Workshop.
I'm really excited.
So then we have smaller games. Let's go through War Machine and Horde / Monpok real quick. Any new releases on that?
Yeah, so October we're seeing a lot of new releases, especially for War Machine and Hordes. Actually, no, all their games they're getting a lot of huge releases. War Machine and Hordes
Mhm.
we're continuing the Oblivion releases, so we're getting more Archons coming into the game, which are basically not angels for any of the specific deities in the setting. We're also seeing 3 new Riot Quest models. So the fourth incarnation of the Butcher, uh, then the Wolf with No Name, which is if Clint Eastwood was a werewolf, and then finally Captain Crawtooth, who is an alligator person who ate a ship's captain and then assumed his place.
Nice,
Yeah,
nice.
obviously my favorite. Uh,
Isn't Riot Quest coming out in October?
Oh no, it's already out. The game is out.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so we're actually hosting our first Riot Quest event the first
Oh
weekend
yeah.
of October. So it's going to be the 6th. So it's going to be really exciting. The game's fast paced and fun. We have a lot of people who are here to give demos on basically Thursday and Friday to anyone who's interested in trying out the game. I highly recommend it. Uh, and then finally, Monster Apocalypse, we're seeing 2 new monsters in the release of Ulgoth, one of the Lords of Cthulhu, who is a tentacled beast covered in eyeballs. And then also White Dajan, who is definitely a giant Yeti. So,
Nice.
yeah, more apes, which is terrifying to me, but it is apparently the apes themselves have been incredibly popular. So as much as I don't like monkeys, I'm glad to see that they are loved by some people, and it is bringing other people into the game. So definitely something to take a look at. And they're also getting some new units that come out with them. So that's Privateer Press that's dropped, or that will be dropping this month in October. And as we get the releases, we'll let you know, and we'll be showing them off either on stream or I'll be posting up in our respective Facebook groups. Other games that we just got in new stuff for, this one's really exciting to me because it takes me back to my childhood, which is the X-Men animated series, the Dark Future
Nice.
Saga. So these are like the big oversized boosters, so you can get like some cool stuff in there. Um, but it contains a lot of the classic animated cartoon figures. So basically, anyone in my generation who grew up on this, even as a collector, these are amazing. Like I'm probably just going to crack open a couple of them just to have, especially since Marvel Crisis Protocol is still like a month or two away. Uh,
It's so close.
but yeah, so this contains characters from like all aspects of the TV show. So you can see the classic X-Men, the Hellfire Club, even some newer comic storylines are mixed in here. But definitely something to check out. And then anyone who's interested in starting in HeroClix, we meet every Saturday. But they have these fast forces. These are really nice for anyone getting into the game. So this one for the animated series, I mean, it's a real winner because it's got Gambit in it, and everybody loves Gambit. Um, but it basically gives you everything that you need to get started playing right here, ready to go. So um, HeroClix has been basically one of our most consistent communities that we've had at Gigabyte. So um, anyone that's interested in it, I definitely recommend it. They're a great group, and HeroClix is getting some really cool stuff in the near future.
So cool.
Yeah,
Let's see. Other small Fallout Wasteland Some Warfare has that Raiders Wave 2 that came out a couple of weeks ago.
and
So don't forget about that one. I was able to get some of the models at Gen Con, and they are incredibly detailed.
yeah, that
And they
robot.
work well if you want generic, like, Mad Max type figures, too. Because
Yeah,
they're not just Fallout. They don't have that. There's nothing in Fallout besides the power armor and maybe the Brotherhood of Steel, which is very much like it is Fallout. They're like generic survivors and generic raiders. It's super cool.
yeah, great for role playing games or mixing it in with any of the systems that you already play. But
Hmm.
also things that are coming out, Malifaux, the rule books, the faction rule books are dropping this month as well.
Oh,
So
sweet.
yeah, if you guys haven't had a chance to look at them, please uh, do yourself a favor and get a pre-order in. Last time we ran out of supply because we had a lot of people show up that wanted it, and then they didn't tell us about it beforehand. So we ran out of product really quick. Don't make that happen again. Um, and then we're also getting in new board games. Like we just got in not only Birmingham, but Obscurio is here. We kind of talked about that a little bit. Those are Obscurio is a great Halloween party game, so I highly recommend it. Um, we're also going to be receiving a lot of new stock from Warlords Games. We started to get the Halfling army in from Warlords of Erewhon, and I said it correctly for once.
Nice, you did it.
Yeah, I did it. Take that, speech impediment. Uh,
45th time's the charm.
yeah, right. Uh, but no, so we got the Halfling army, and I would love to show you guys some, but like we got bought out the first night of it, which is, I mean, that's what I love. Uh,
Yeah.
but the models are incredibly detailed. Uh, they're a lot of fun, and they're really inexpensive. Like you get a unit of 10 halflings for $20, um, which is half the price you would pay from Games Workshop.
Hmm.
Anyways, but there's models in there that can work with any other system because I know we had people pick it up for Lord of the Rings, for Hobbits. We have people picking it up for Saga, Age of Magic. Folks picking it up to mix into their Free People's Army for Age of Sigmar. Uh, it's really fantastic, and we'll be getting in a restock of the Halflings plus a Warlords of Erewhon book because people buying their models are like, oh hey, I have a force that I can now play this game with as well. So
Heck yeah.
really awesome.
That's great. And then David posted that he pre-ordered all the Fallout robot restocks, and those are the number one sellers of all things Fallout. Because who doesn't want a massive Protectron, walking around, or Robo Brain? I don't know if they have Robo Brains. I hope so. Assaultrons, all that good stuff. It's amazing.
So Jeremy Jones asks, when's the next major convention for miniature previews? Um, so convention season is basically over with in the United States, with one major exception. There's Warfare Weekend coming up in St. Louis at the beginning of November. That is where traditionally Privateer Press unveils new projects and models that they've been working on. And then I believe Games Workshop has a Games Day in November or late October. So that's when we're going to see the next major previews for those companies. But I wouldn't necessarily hold your breath from either of those guys because they have really laid out the next 3 months of releases for them already. So it'll be
Yep.
difficult to top that.
Yeah. Awesome, cool. And then you all make sure to comment and tell us other game systems you want us to cover. We have a lot, so going through all of them can sometimes be more time consuming than we have time for. So if you let us know, then we can figure out content schedules, be able to talk about different games and stuff like that. So
Also, John,
please do, definitely.
we have a big announcement that we're moving the date and time of the Rambles.
That's right. So Saturdays at 2 p.m.
So
So starting, I think either next week or the week after, we'll figure out once we get all the equipment settled and handled and everything. But yeah, it'll be on Saturdays. That gives people time to either you're doing stuff at home. If it's Saturday morning, a lot of folks have kids and they're doing activities, or you're just doing activities in general on Saturday mornings. And then the afternoon slot gives you time to kind of post lunch enjoy, the same thing that you're doing here, just on Saturdays. That way a lot more people can participate. Because I know this time is like your people's right before lunch or during your lunch hour.
yeah,
So it'll be good. It'll be good. But I think we can still keep this time for talking about things like war games. So if y'all are interested in that, let us know because we're filling out our streaming schedule again with shorter, punchier things. So as this video is the nice hour long, talk to about a whole bunch of stuff. Smaller segments would be something like 15 to 20 minutes. So super fast, super snappy, getting stuff talked about.
yeah, absolutely. I would love to continue doing a Friday chat about miniature games and what's coming up in the industry as a whole,
Hmm.
in terms of competitive play or casual play and organizing. But that will
Yeah,
be up
yeah, absolutely.
for the demand of it. But I'm excited to see David back on the Rambles full time on Saturdays. Uh, and also, this may or may not be my last time on the Rambles, at least for a while. So, yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure.
I know, it's fun. It's fun. And if, technically, because Rambles is talking about all kinds of stuff, but if we have our focus for you and me on Fridays on wargaming, I think it's pretty solid. Because we tend to focus on that a lot anyway, because that's a lot of the big news that we have that we're interested in.
Yep.
So I think that'll be good to have on Fridays. That way we can have that as Wargame Fridays. I'll figure out a better name for that.
Yeah,
If anyone has a name idea, let me know. I'm always thinking about it.
absolutely. All right, guys.
Super cool.
Well, with that, we'll sign off and we'll see y'all next week in some form or fashion.
Awesome. Cool. Bye, everybody.
Bye.